Greetings, my name is Mike Levis and I'm an avalanche instructor with the Mount Hood Ski Patrol. In the previous module, we discussed the key management roles in an organized rescue. In this module, we will focus on the leadership of a rescue response. We will discuss the importance of planning and issues that can come up in responding to an incident, both prior to deploying, en route to the avalanche site, and during the rescue itself. In this module, we will expand our discussion of human factors to include considerations in a rescue scenario. We will also describe the characteristics of a good follower and a good leader in a rescue context. We will conclude with a discussion of strategies to use to ensure safety and effectiveness in all phases of a rescue scenario. One of the issues that can complicate the rescue effort is human factors. In the past, we discussed human factors in decision-making in the context of leading a group on a backcountry tour. Human factors also need to be considered in the context of a rescue. In this case, we are concerned with the behaviors of the rescue team. The rescue event is a high-stress, high-urgency event. Rescuers will be hyper-focused on the mission and aware of the time sensitivity of their efforts. This will create a lot of internal pressure to get to the accident scene ASAP. With this mindset, they may not be as aware as they should be of avalanche hazards en route and at the scene of the avalanche. Tunnel vision can set in, and obvious signs of avalanche danger can be missed. As this slide indicates, the first rule in search and recovery activity is don't become part of the problem. If you, as a group of rescuers, have a mishap going to a rescue, the rescue scenario becomes much more complicated. Rescue resources will need to be diverted from the original call to focus on rescuing the rescuers. Not a good situation. Keep in mind that if you are heading to an avalanche incident, you are by definition in AVI terrain. Moreover, if you are not intimately familiar with the route, you risk other hazards along the way. For example, cliffs or creek crossings that could result in injuries to the rescuers. The greatest risk is usually to the rapid response team. They will be in a hurry to get to the scene of the incident and may not have time to dig pits and do other routine stability tests en route. In order to make it easier for the secondary response team to navigate, the rapid response team should mark the trail. This should ensure the secondary response team can safely get to the scene. So how do we mitigate some of these human factors with the rescue party? As we mentioned previously, it is very important that the rescue team not become part of the problem. The best way to ensure this is to have established safety protocols that are followed by all party members. This could include such things like the avalanche travel protocols we've discussed previously. All members keep eye on each other, only one person travel at a time across a suspect slope, and so forth. There also should be a formal leadership structure in both the rapid response team and the secondary response team. There should be a clearly defined leader and clearly defined roles for all other group members. Group members need to demonstrate discipline as they travel to the scene and resist the urge to freelance. As we discussed previously, preparation is key for a successful rescue. Let's discuss some considerations that rescue teams face in planning for a response to an avalanche incident. There are two main challenges that rescue teams face: location and time. As we mentioned above, time is of the essence. Remember the survival curves? Location complicates the response. Generally, the exact location of a rescue is not known prior to the call coming in, so the rescue team is often faced with unknown locations across unfamiliar terrain. Compare this situation with a Chair-evac MCI scenario, for example. With a Chair-evac, the location is known and the scenario can be practiced in a way that is similar to what will happen in reality. In an avalanche mass casualty incident, locations and route make preparation more complex. So how to address the uncertainty in location and terrain? Well, avalanches tend to happen in the same places year after year. So the approach taken by most resorts is to compile an avalanche atlas. The Avalanche Atlas is based on historical avalanche data and identifies locations that are most likely to slide. With an avalanche atlas, routes can be predefined to susceptible slopes. These routes can be checked at the beginning of each season to make sure hazards are known prior to a rescue. It is also possible to stage equipment at key points to reduce response time in the event of an avalanche incident. Helicopter landing sites can be mapped as well. Practice scenarios can also be held at these locations under the appropriate situation. Remember, scene safety. Anything that can be done to prepare in advance will reduce response time and increase survivability. Pre-staging equipment is key to a timely response. Transceivers, probes, shovels, and first aid kits should all be packaged up for the rapid response team deployment. And don't forget the batteries. Flagging should also be prepared in advance to mark the route, to mark the search boundaries, and the staging areas at the scene. Communications equipment should be identified and set aside to go. All this equipment should be checked at the beginning of the season and rechecked after any deployment. Scrambling around when a call comes in to find necessary gear is a recipe for a poor outcome. Plan ahead and be ready. Probably the most important part of preparation is practice. Create realistic scenarios that mimic what you will be faced with in reality. Practice entire scenarios from time a call comes in, to deployment, to stand down. Note this practice is much more than a refresher on how to use a beacon. This is a system-wide scenario. It should include all organizations, both in the resort and external, who might reasonably be expected to be part of a rescue. This includes the medical response as well. In a real scenario, the rescue does not stop when the victim is dug out. It shouldn't be in the training scenarios either. It is also useful to place personnel in different roles during these scenarios. This helps broaden the base of experience for responders and creates redundancy in the event someone is not on duty when a call comes in. So let's walk through a rescue event and talk about preparation at each phase. So the call comes in. There's been an avalanche with some number of victims. What preparation needs to occur? As we discussed previously, having equipment pre-stage is critical. Valuable time can be wasted looking for and gathering equipment. Once the rapid response team is assembled, there needs to be a pre-departure briefing. The route needs to be identified, the AVI and weather forecast reviewed, and any potential hazards discussed. This is where the AVI Atlas and pre-planning can really pay dividends. If the avalanche incident is in a known slide area, the route to the scene should have been mapped out in advance. There should be a discussion of current conditions and expected challenges. How is the visibility? What's the current wind and temperature? What are the trends? Are conditions getting better or getting worse? The bottom line is the rapid response team can get to the accident scene and back safely. If there are doubts, what's the backup plan? Wait until conditions improve? During the pre-departure meeting, there should be a radio check and a discussion of communications protocols. What is the channel to be used? Are all the radios on that channel? And of course, there should be a transceiver check. There should also be a brief discussion of travel protocols. This really should be a review since travel protocols should have been defined and practiced in advance. There should be a risk discussion. Who will make the call to turn back or change plans? What if there's an emergency en route? All rapid response team members should be logged into the dispatch records with a description of planned route and expected time of arrival. Once the rapid response team is en route, all team members should be alert to hazards. This includes the human factors we discussed previously. In particular, someone should be assigned the task of watching the point person to make sure tunnel vision is not coming into play as the group tries to get to the scene quickly. Note any hazards that will need to be communicated to the secondary response team. As you approach the scene of the slide, take in the big picture. Don't go rushing in without assessing potential hazards. It's important at this point to slow down, take a breath, and ask out loud, is the scene safe? Look for hang fire or adjacent start zones that share the same slide path. Could they slide? The bottom line is to proceed only if it's safe to do so. In the next slides, we're going to talk about the characteristics of good rescue leaders. But first, I'd like to discuss what makes a good follower. Being a good rescue team member is very important to the success of any rescue event. A good rescue team member has excellent rescue skills. They are competent with all aspects of the rescue protocol: beacon search, strategic shoveling, route finding, hazard evaluation, and so forth. This is the minimum requirement. Beyond that, the rescue team member knows how to accept and follow directions. They don't freelance. They don't distract other rescue team members with unnecessary chatter. They know when and how to communicate to the rescue leader. Good rescue team members show up ready to go. They're properly equipped, their equipment is in good condition, and they know how to use it. Good rescue team members are confident in their skills and understand the requirements of the role they are asked to play. Equally important, if they're asked to fill a role that they are not comfortable in, they speak up and let the team leader know. Good rescue team members are flexible and can adapt to different leadership styles. Avalanche rescues can be emotionally challenging events. In the worst case, it may be a body recovery. Good team members can effectively compartmentalize emotions while doing the rescue work required. They can recognize when emotions are coming into play and keep them in check. They can recognize when the emotional challenge gets to be too much and communicate the situation to the site commander or incident commander before it impacts the rescue. They do not let their emotions become part of the problem. Now that we've discussed the characteristics of a good team member, let's discuss what makes a good leader. Good leaders know their people and adjust their management style to what works most effectively. They can motivate their team members to go the extra mile to overcome obstacles. They can set and communicate clear objectives. They give clear feedback to motivate or adjust behavior. They are aware of the needs of their team members, both physical and psychological. They can recognize when someone needs to take a break, even if that person may not recognize it themselves. And through the stress of the rescue situation, they are calm under pressure and maintain a positive attitude. They don't lose their composure no matter how stressful the situation becomes. Good leaders are good listeners. They can discern what their team members are trying to communicate beyond merely the words they're saying. Good leaders are decisive. They make carefully thought out decisions with imperfect data and communicate these decisions effectively. So how does a good leader assess the situation and make decisions in a fact-based, unemotional way? The good leader will ask a lot of questions. What, where, who, how many, for example. The good leader will consider options and select what they feel is the best solution to the situation. They will be able to articulate why they feel this is the best solution. So let's dig into this more deeply. This slide expands on the questions we discussed previously. So what is the problem? How many problems are we faced with? And are they all equal in priority? How do we prioritize them? What is the desired outcome? What resources are needed? People, equipment, transportation, etc. Once you've identified the resources needed, these needs must be aligned with the resources available. You may need 20 people, but only 10 may be available. What do? Can witnesses or bystanders fill the gap? You may want helicopters to evacuate patients, but the weather may not be acceptable for helicopter operations. What are your options? Can you move patients by snowmobile down the mountain to a location where the weather is acceptable for helicopter operations? Rescue operations always boil down to aligning resource desires with what is available and coming up with ways to bridge the gap. Rescue plans always involve selecting from multiple options. How are you going to make this decision? For example, do you go with existing resources or wait for more resources to arrive? Do you start for the rescue scene now, or you wait until weather improves? The first step in making this decision is to quickly articulate what your options are and understanding the pros and cons of each alternative. Once we understand the options, the pros and cons of each option, how will you make the decision? And who will make the decision? There is no hard and fast rule, but generally the decision will be made based on the urgency of the situation, the resources available, and the hazard expected to be faced by the rescue team. So once the victims have been unburied and evacuated, rescue operations are not over. How will the rescue team get back to base? Can they proceed along the same route used to get to the accident scene? What's happening with the weather? How much daylight is left? It's important that all rescue staff be accounted for, both before leaving the scene and when arriving back at the base. Once back at the base, equipment needs to be checked in and serviced, and there should be a formal debrief to assess what went well and what could have been done better. And any psychological first aid needed by the rescuers should be provided. This brings us to the end of our organized rescue module. In our breakout session, we will go through some desktop scenarios similar to that shown on the screen to reinforce many of the concepts we've discussed.